All right, welcome back, everyone. I have a special guest on today. I got Ray here from Pierce County, made famous by Dion Financial Talk. But welcome, Ray.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah, man, this is gonna be a fun one, man. You probably connected with me 2 years ago or so, maybe.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
about 2
and
years ago.
yeah, and you kind of are investing in real estate in Pierce County, and you also got a new property out in Michigan. But why don't you kind of give my audience a little story about your background, your portfolio?
Yeah. As far as my background, I'm an entrepreneur. I own a photo and video production company where I shoot real estate, luxury homes, stuff like that here in Pierce County. I also own another business where I do portrait photography, where I do destination weddings, event photography, stuff like that. As far as my portfolio goes, I've been investing. I started back in 2010. I bought my first property when I was 21 years old and essentially kind of figured out, hey, I think this is the route that I want to go. And I've just been buying single families at any time I could as I was doing my business. And now I have 4 units and I just did a subject to up in Michigan.
Yeah, I love it. So I think when you first reached out to me, you didn't have that single family in Michigan, so that's something new. We can talk about that also. But I love, we kind of connected also in Vegas, and you always blame me that I kind of twisted your arm in going, and we can dig into that too because it seemed like you had a great time there. But I really want to kind of touch on first is, we got to discuss there on kind of maybe why you have reservations, about these type of things, but just kind of your vision or your passion behind being successful in all of this. So let's kind of dig into that a little bit.
Yeah. I think I was kind of reaching out like a lot of new investors. I wanted to find a circle in my area that I could kind of gravitate to and kind of learn from. And that's kind of how I found Dion's group, Tacoma Fi. And, I was already investing before I was in the Tacoma Fi group. And I just wanted to find like minded people. You know what I'm saying? And when I became a part of that group, I was just really interested. I started becoming very regular and just trying to figure out what the group's about, what kind of knowledge I could get in there. And then that's kind of how I met you, Mark. And through that connection, I saw that you were on Dion's channel, kind of reached out to you. I'm a little awkward sometimes when I'm first introducing myself, and I think I kind of mentioned that. Yeah, but long story short, you were inviting me to the ORAT. I would say bullying, I guess you would say.
No bullying involved. Gently tried to persuade you and tell you how great of an event year one was, and even though you did say you were awkward when we first connected, it was, it was all in play. It was fun. But like you said too, you started investing a while ago, and I think that's kind of my journey too. Maybe that's why we connected, but we kind of, we didn't maybe have that vision at first, right? It was just kind of, getting on that single family home at first, and it's almost felt like you made it, right? And that was, and you succeeded, but you've kind of, like you said, you found a new path. You're up to 4 single family homes now. You have 2 businesses of your own, like you're saying. So why such a change, you think, in the mindset?
um, for me, I've always felt like I was going to be an entrepreneur. You know what I'm saying? I never felt a right when I was working my sales job. I did sales for over 10 years. And, at the time in my life in that chapter, that was great because I was a broke kid. You know what I'm saying? And I needed to make money. And it was a great way for me to maximize the time that I had and make the most cash possible in commission based jobs. But as I got my head above water, and finally started to look around, I realized very quickly that this wasn't the path for me, you know? And I I started multiple businesses, you know. I had a hot dog cart business. I had multiple businesses where I was doing web design. I went to college for graphic technologies. And long story short, just like a lot of entrepreneurs, you try a lot of different things and then you find out that hey, this works, this feels right, and then you fully commit to that.
So how did you get into the scaling the real estate side? So, because a lot of people, like even Zuber gets that question, are you an entrepreneur? Are you an employee? But like you said from the beginning, you saw yourself as an entrepreneur. So how did that real estate fit into that?
Perfect. Yeah. So essentially, when I first started, I was kind of watching a lot of HGTV. You know what I'm saying? That was my YouTube, I guess you could say. Um, this particular show was income properties, where they convert like a basement into a unit or whatever. And I was just thinking to myself, oh wow, this could be like a cool potential. And while I was working my sales job, I saw my manager buying a house, and I was like, shoot, if she can buy a house, I can buy a house, right? So I was living in an apartment at the time. I bought a house during the 2010, right after the crash, essentially. Obama was giving out $8,000 tax credits. And I said to myself, hey, man, let's buy a house and then maybe move some people in. I didn't really know what house hacking was at the time. All I knew was my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, was in going to college, and she wasn't living with me because she was going to Central, and I was living by myself in this apartment. So long story short, I started moving my buddies in, a bunch of gamers. That's why I really relate to Dion, because dude, I moved all my gamer friends inside my house, and I was practically living for really low costs for my mortgage, right? And long story short, I just kind of followed that trajectory. I couldn't tell you where my money went for my job, but I can tell you, 10 years later, that I saw my equity that I had built up in my home, right? And that's when I really started seeing, hey, this might be the right path. And I'm more of a believer, seeing is believing. And once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it.
Yeah, that's a great point. So, that's kind of the dilemma a lot of times people face, right? Is it make more sense to rent or buy at this time? And sometimes renting makes more sense, but it also is making sure that whatever you are possibly saving, you're investing. But also, just if you are fortunate enough to purchase a home, it's also like a forced saving too, right? Like you're saying, you didn't know where your money, maybe you couldn't say where your money was going, but just by making those payments, mortgage payments every month, it's almost like a forced saving where you can tap into it down the road and use that equity. Like, is that how you also scale to get other properties? Like, have you used any HELOCs or anything or whatnot?
At the beginning, Mark, to be honest with you, I had so many letters in the mail, just like a lot of us do, right? I was actually thinking that since I was in sales, I thought all that was just scams and a bunch of people just trying to like steal stuff from me, I've always been not the most trustworthy, like I don't trust a lot of people. So when I got those mailers, it was probably a good thing that I had that ignorance, because I would ignore all these, hey, refinance your house, hey, do a HELOC or whatever. I didn't even know what any of that meant. So at the beginning, I essentially started buying my properties just because I knew I wanted to create income, because I saw it with my roommates, right? That was the first time I ever became a landlord, per se. And I started seeing, hey, you know what? I could do this. And I was making decent enough money at my sales job that I saw an opportunity during, I believe that was like when COVID and interest rates started really dropping, because I started getting a lot of my other houses at the beginning when the interest rates started coming down, which was closer to like 2020. And I didn't use a HELOC at the time. I just essentially did a conventional 5% down, and I just kept buying these houses and moving in, living in it, and then moving out.
Now, the most interesting one is going to be this most recent one, I think. So you're going out of state in Michigan. And like you said before, this has all been kind of traditional financing. So this one is kind of completely out of the box, right? So now you're going out of state. We can talk about what type of financing you're using. and it doesn't sound like it's a traditional long-term rental play you're going with. So let's kind of dig into that a little bit.
Yeah, I think this one was very rare, and I really I want to give a lot of credit to the Tacoma Fi group. Just being around people closing deals. You know what I mean? I didn't know anything much about Subject to. Like Subject to was fairly new to me. I was doing a lot of my own research on seller finance, and when the deal came to me, I had just started my research on Subject to. But it was one of those situations where you have an opportunity, and you can either let it pass you, or you can dig deeper and see if it's something that's going to work, right? So long story short, if you want me to elaborate into the deal, let me know. Do you want me to go into the deal?
Yeah, I think the audience would love to hear how you found it and what kind of financing and everything that you're doing with it. And even why were you thinking of midterm rental from the beginning?
No, that's another testament of just being around other people, right? So I guess I'll just kind of go from the beginning. Um, when I started looking out for this deal, I was already telling my friends and family that, hey, I'm a real estate investor. I'm getting into this. I'm really learning about it, and I'm just letting my circle know. And my buddy that I played, man, this was years ago. I was a big StarCraft 2 player. Okay, I'm a big online gamer. I'm a big geek. Okay, but long story short, my buddy he bought his house back in, I think it was like back in 2020 or something like that. And he was trying to do business, and it just didn't work out the way that he expected, you know? And we had talked, for plenty of times over the phone and what our goals are and whatnot. And he came back and reached out to me because we talked that I was a real estate investor. Long story short, he needed a certain amount of cash in order for him to move into his new location. And this new location was a family estate that he just needed to move into. And the home that he had was in disrepair, right? Like it needed a new roof, needed new siding, it needed a lot of work. And he was also trying to transition from his full-time business to moving to a different part of the state. And he was just like, dude, if you're really interested, I'd be willing to talk to you and see how we could make this work, right? So for me, of course, I did all the due diligence, right? I went in there, I flew down, checked out the property, I looked at the numbers, right? I looked at his PITI, you know what I'm saying? I looked at the area to see if it was an up and coming area, and everything kind of checked the boxes. And once I really got into there, now I was like, how do I make this work, right? Because he was open to subject to, and I didn't know how to do subject to, right? So of course the first thing I do is I reach out to my circle, I reach out to people in Tacoma Fi, and I start getting a lot of bits of information, but I wasn't getting a clear picture, you know so I go online, I find some subject to mentors that I feel were in line with my goals and ideas, and I learn from them. And then I am actively doing the deal and going through the process. And that's kind of like how I just maneuvered through it. And as I slowly got into the deal, I learned subject to hands on.
That's amazing. And then, so as far as the midterm rental philosophy, would it would it work as just a traditional long-term rental, or from the beginning you kind of knew you had to do something else?
Yes. So when I took over the like when I was looking at the subject to, the mortgage was $911. Okay. And the average rents in the area were going anywhere between, for a 3-2, was going for around 26 and 2,800. I always lowball. Let's just say I can get 2,500, right? Well, I have a $911 mortgage. Long term numbers worked, right? It was just depending on what he wanted. And it ended up he needed $40,000 cash for his deal. So I came up with the money, and parts of it he knew that there was equity in the deal. It's one of those weird subject to deals that you generally don't get equity in the deal. But just due to his circumstances, us knowing each other, I didn't wanna screw him over. We wanted it to feel like a deal that was, mutually beneficial. So, part of the equity that he had in the deal, I also seller financed. But I made sure that the seller finance portion of it was very favorable on my side because I was giving him so much cash. So to kinda give you an idea, I gave him a total of 80 grand, right? But 40,000 was cash, and the other 40 was seller finance at a 0% interest and at 0 monthly payments, and what I decided that I would do was I would give him 2 balloon payments. $15,000 would be in 15 years, and the other 25 would be in 30, and he agreed to it, and for me, it works out because 'cause I'm not coming up with this money in a couple years or whatever, and I could stabilize this, and I could, well, you know, I could flip it, I could long-term rent it, I could midterm it, and at the time, I just turned my personal residence into an Airbnb. So for me, I was seeing the difference in, cash flow that I was making, and I was like, "Man, there could be some real opportunity, on this Michigan property."
But so now, like you said, you turned yours into an Airbnb, but you're in that area, you're hands on. But now you, like I said, you're out of state
Mhm.
and gonna dabble in midterm rental. So how has that experience gone?
So for me, I have essentially had to do a full rehab on this house, right? I've done rehabs on homes, like my personal residence that I live in now, I fully rehabbed it. And I've worked, being in the industry of real estate, working with agents, I work with tons of people who do flips, and those are my clients. So I've watched for almost 11 years these people around me doing these things. And, I've taken note, I've found their contractors, I've communicated with them, worked with them. And once I gained all this experience, I was like, I think I can do it. Like, I feel like I could tackle this renovation out of state. And long story short, it didn't come without, difficulties for sure. Right. A lot of the ideas that I thought, this contractor will do this or that. Some of those things don't pan out the way you are, but being an entrepreneur, I'm not a quitter. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, when things get tough, I just get tougher and I make it happen. And that's what I did in Michigan, and that's how I was able to build that team that I needed. And now I feel so much more confident. You know what I mean? Because all those hardships that I had trying to get the project done in the renovation makes me think, "Oh, finding cleaners, you know what I'm saying? Getting somebody to mow the lawn is not gonna be as hard as trying to get your roof done, get your siding done, get electrical, plumbing," you know? These are very, harder things to do than finding a cleaner, you know what I'm saying?
So it sounds like you had a favorable experience so far. So now for the whole, a lot of people do have hesitation, going out of state, but you've gone out of state, done a rehab, dabbling in the midterm space. Do you think it's something you're going to be looking for? You've expanded your playground now as far as investing. Like you'll be looking at other markets and doing things like that.
I think the biggest thing is, this is still fairly new to me. I think the reality is I need to check out and stabilize my property. I just finished the rehab. I'm about to fly down to go take the photos. And the part of the reason I'm flying down to go do that is because I need to stay in the property, kind of get an understanding before I get it fully active. So those are a couple things that I'm trying to figure out. But long story short, would I continue to invest? I think I gotta really see how this plays out. I'm gonna give it like a year, but I will tell you, being in a high cost of living market like Washington State in comparison to Michigan, you can get these homes for a lot cheaper than what you could get here in Washington. The issue is, I think we're playing with with our high incomes. And I think that's really the advantage, right? To go there and do a rehab, is that really the best use of our talents, our skills, and what we're getting? I'm not sure, right? I just know that the deal was right for me, and it made sense to invest a lot of that money into this property, because you don't see deals like that walk up to you. You know what I'm saying? All that often.
Well, this is going to be interesting to follow. So, if anybody out there wants to follow this journey, I know you're on Facebook, Instagram, social media. So you have your like a YouTube, right? Also for like your photos, and
Yeah.
so go check that out. We'll put all those links in the description. But if you even want to see like Ray's man cave that he has that he brags about, and I believe he has some card game Tacoma 5 card games. Going on there that Dion and uh, Justin Cambro go to. So go check that out. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. And like we said, you attended the Vegas event, so maybe does it sound like you're going to be there next year and you're going to be able to share how this Michigan property is doing?
No, definitely. And I want to thank you, Mark. Like, seriously, I think you kind of motivating me to go to the event. I felt like, I guess, part of my hesitant, I was a little hesitant, was because, I was already a part of the group. I'm already a part of the Tacoma Phi. And I was worried that it was going to be a lot of the same thing. You know what I mean? I watch you guys actively on YouTube, like probably a lot of us do. And my concern was like, hey, what am I going to get out of this? Right. And is it going to be a good value for my time? But long story short, after attending the event, I think it cleared up a lot of those questions I had, because really what I found the value was being surrounded by more like-minded people. You know what I'm saying? In your area and in your group, in your city, you're limited to those people that are around you who are proactively participating, right? And for my business, I related a lot, because when I started my journey in entrepreneurship, I seeked out mentorship, not just in my local area, but around the world. And I went to those, and that's how I became this photographer, because I went to these different locations and different cities to get mentoring. So it only makes sense that I do the same for my real estate investing.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I think, I kind of like I touched on it too. Like, I went to year one more from it was like a celebration, right? Zuber hit his 50Ks. It was kind of a celebration of everything. So it had a lot of I would say the OGs of speakers, right? The Coach Carsons, the Dion. So it was a little bit different type of event. So year two, I did kind of, it didn't have that same luster to me at first. I kind of faded for me, and I kind of was on the fence if I was going to go, but I said, I'm going to go in. But same thing, after attending year two, I realized now that it's not so much who was speaking. It's not even really. It's like it's the connections you meet. It's being around like-minded people, and that's always the one joke. Like in Hawaii, there's a lot of people doing great things here, but a lot of times you're still just stuck in that same, like where you went to high school, or that same community you grew up in and your same high school friends. And a lot of people are still doing great things, but it's just you're not expanding yourself and seeing what other people are doing. And it was just cool to be at that event, and you're seeing like Dylan, what is he, 23, 25, and he's like a multi-family unit already, or apartment building, whatnot. And it's just interesting to see that there's people out there doing all these amazing things. And yeah, year two for me, my big takeaway was I had way more fun than year one. You're a big reason for that too. I mean, you, Curtis, Pat, I talked about. I mean, it was just a fun time, and it was just a different feeling, and a lot of connecting going on. And I think year three is going to be great. But yeah, I mean, we kind of touched on a lot of things too, but I want to talk also about you have some amazing photography stuff going on. So was that always the vision too? Like you were doing that before real estate, or because you were doing like wedding things first, right? And
Yes. I was doing weddings first. That was my business. I was, but as you kind of get in your journey, things change, right? Like, and I started, especially during COVID. COVID was a big game changer for me because during COVID, I couldn't shoot events as readily, right? So for me, I had to do a big shift in my business, and I was already shooting weddings and real estates on the side, right? And during COVID, that was a huge takeoff because it only magnified my real estate business. Essentially, anything from 3D tours, drones, video. Like, I was doing more of that stuff than ever before because it was being requested by all my agents. So during that time, I really leaned into the real estate side of my business and started hyper focusing. And yeah, it just became this monster of a business that I'm thankful for, but also is in line with my goals. You know what I'm saying? And I'm very thankful to have that because I probably see more homes than most agents do. You know what I'm saying? And to be honest, I probably get most of my deals. My last deal that I bought was because I was shooting the property. I went from photographer to real estate investor and purchased a home. So I tend to get a lot of my deals using my business as a way to kind of facilitate them.
Yeah, I love that. That's the one thing I really got out from you is that I think you're always looking for opportunities. And even at the event, right, there was the special surprise speaker. Graham Stephan did make it to the event. And, like I think you had a comment or question for him, right? And
Yeah.
he asked what market you're in. And he said, hey, I got a lot of people that probably work with you. So, you're trying to seize the most. So have you heard from him or anything since then?
No, but I did hear from the videographers that were a part of the event. You know, they used to be in the Seattle market, so they were just like, hey, you being in the same industry, I got definitely some people that maybe we can connect you with, just so you can be a resource to them. So yeah, there's definitely just, and those are the awesome things, right? Like, I'm a big believer in, you have to put the energy out there, right? And that energy will come back. And if I would have not gone, like, all these connections that I made, these are the what ifs, right? And I'm just very good now in my life to just see the opportunity and take it, right? Don't let it pass you.
Yeah, you got a fishing trip probably with Pat Wilson planned. And even I did a recent interview with Stephen Gwynn, who moved from Orlando to Pittsburgh, and he has a drone, and he said he connected with you and he's trying to pick your brain about how
Yeah.
to maybe do some photography with his drone and things like that. So like you said, and I think that's what a lot of people also got out of the event, that it wasn't just strictly real estate based. Some of the speakers that were on stage, we're talking about health, you had mindset, social media side. So it wasn't all strictly real estate. And I think a lot of people enjoyed that. And that was probably some of their favorite speakers. And yeah, like hopefully Stephen, can follow that same path as you. And you kind of touched on it earlier. Like I said, you call it bullying. I call it persuading. But so for next year, is there anyone that you are going to try and bully or persuade to attend the event with you?
Well, I'm a little bit more I'm a little bit more aggressive. Maybe I'll be putting them in chokeholds and taking them on the plane. You know what I'm saying? But no, just the reality is, I think, I'm a big participant of the Tacoma Fight group, and I think a lot of people there are very like-minded individuals. And I think, I'm just gonna be more likely to just let them know, like, hey, there is a lot more to this ORAT meeting in Vegas. And I got a lot from it. The connections, the friendships, like, you're a really cool dude, Mark. And I could definitely see myself heading over there in Hawaii, enjoy some of that warm weather you got, and
Absolutely, man.
visiting you.
Yeah, you were one of the stars of the event. You were a lot of fun to be around, and I think you did kind of touch on it off camera. I think you're hoping to get your wife to join you next year, and I think that is a big focus on what Zuber is trying to do. Right. I think a lot of the speakers were geared toward couples or forming that team or getting the spouse on board. He had Lumberjack and his wife speaking, and PTO for Life, Jeff and Suleika. So I think that is a big push for him. And I think, yeah, like you said, hopefully you can get your wife there and she can see all the cool things. Because, yeah, there was even Rusty and Katie in California. I know the wife maybe wasn't as on board as Rusty was hoping. And after the event, she seems like she's a lot more on board and she sees the success. And even Lars and his wife seem to be heading in a different direction now. I think they're going to be looking at the Pittsburgh market now.
Your market.
Yeah, but they're kind of more seeing how they can work as a team on this. So I think it was a great event to attend, and it sounded like you had a great time. And even though you had to take care of Curtis and stuff like that, but yeah, I think like you said too, the Tacoma Phi, it has such a great following already. Maybe a lot of people already feel like, oh, what am I going to get from it? Dion already shows up to these things. Millennial Mike, when he's around, shows up. So maybe a lot of them have that same like, I'm not going to get too much from it. But like you're saying, you went, and it's just a different vibe and energy there, and hopefully you can get more people to show up next year.
Yeah, for sure. Just to touch on, you know, my wife. I think I she runs into a lot of the issues, like maybe with other partners who maybe investing wasn't their path at the beginning. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like some of the speakers that spoke, I feel like if she was there, she could really relate to them. And she's playing a lot bigger role. Like, I'll tell you, she wasn't wanting to do the Airbnb thing downstairs in our house at the beginning. And I was a little skeptical, but Curtis, being that house hacker that he is, he's like, "Oh man, I lived in a place, didn't have a shower," and I was like, "Damn, maybe I'm not too good for that." You know what I'm saying? Maybe I can do it. And like I said, just being around people like Curtis, who are just like, out of the box thinkers, really just made me motivated. And then now you should see my wife, bro. She's like, "You're not allowed to message on Airbnb. I handle that. The cleaners got to do the pillows this way." So it's like, it's really cool to see her transform and, take ownership into our real estate journey. And, I want her to be as much a part of it as I am.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think sometimes that's part of it too, right? I mean, maybe some people only think as real estate as being this long-term tenants and kind of maintenance issues. But when you, like you're saying, you did a short-term rental, maybe that's the space that she enjoys more, right? Like the decorating or communicating with the guests and things like that. And so that might be a way to get her more involved. But you did touch on Curtis, so if anyone out there doesn't follow Curtis, PE turned RE, go check him out. He has a YouTube channel. But they said his kind of claim to fame, and maybe he can be on stage next year. I think that would be a great story to share that people may not know. Curtis's first house hack to get on the property ladder, right? He had no shower, or he basically put up a wall and had no shower. He would shower at the gym, the mom's house, the girlfriend's house, but he made that sacrifice to get on the property ladder. And I think he's on his second house hack now, I believe.
Yeah, I think he's got another triplex. So yeah, he's doing amazing things.
Yep. So go check out his channel. And I think you probably want to clarify or clean up any misinformation about you and Curtis, there was rumors that you guys shared a bed in Vegas because Curtis is so frugal. People were thinking that was possible, but I'm sure you definitely want to clear that up, right?
Yeah, if you want to subscribe to our OnlyFans, or
Well,
no, I'm just messing.
we could throw that out there. We can see how it does. But definitely, yeah, we wanna clear that up. They did not share a bed, but
No,
it did. We wouldn't put it past Curtis, knowing how frugal he is, based on his Uber receipts, probably in Vegas.
no, I will tell you, Mark. With you and Curtis was, I pretty much said, "Hey, if I'm gonna go to Vegas, it's because you and I are gonna go do it together, and it's gonna make me feel comfortable, right? And Curtis was is just one of those very supportive people that just said, "All right, let's do it," right? And that gave me the extra push I needed on top of what you were doing to really commit to this event. And like I said, I, I probably shouldn't have not needed that anyway, but sometimes that's what you need. You need good people around you, and that's what this community is, and it's what I'm starting to believe and see. And it's people like you, it's people like him that make me, want to participate. And what's crazy is in a world of noise, me being in the media space, there's a lot of fake and there's a lot of BS out there, right? And this is the one of very few communities that feels authentic and real and genuine. So, definitely appreciate it. And anybody who's questioning, just check out an event. What's it gonna hurt you? You know what I'm saying? See what
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Right. I think you are one of the real ones. And I think that is a lot of people's takeaway from the one rental at a time community. And I think, like you said, it is different than other events, right? I mean, there's no sign in, like you're not putting your email information when you come. Nobody is selling really products there, or there's no, it's basically, it was like a family reunion. And that's the way I that's my take from it. And like I said, year two was, I think it was a lot more enjoyable too. I mean, there was a lot of people that I thought were going to be there from year one, and I was hoping to. I know, unfortunately, there were certain things that happened and people couldn't make it, but it's just year two just felt more like a compounding effect from year one. And it's just like this family keeps growing and relationships are building. And now I'm just excited for year three. And I'm sure it's gonna fade a little bit after, some excitement's gonna die. But I think I'm just like, yeah, year three is just gonna be amazing. And I'm actually worried someone might get arrested next year. But
that might be me and you, bro. We'll see.
Ah, yeah. If I had to put money right now, I'm gonna say Jason. You or Jason, maybe.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna have my wife there, so
Uh,
she'll keep me in check.
shit. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see. But yeah, man. Before we wrap things up, maybe give everyone a shout where your social medias are and where they can follow you at.
Yeah, I think the one that's going to be most relevant is going to be my real estate business. I own PNW Visuals. PNW Visuals is my real estate company. So you can find it on pnwvisuals.com, or you can find me on Instagram at PNWVIS. Couldn't get the visuals on there, so somebody already had it. So I was like, it's all good.
All right, and like I said, go follow him on Facebook. You can go see his man cave and everything. It's a cool place, man. It looks like a lot of fun. So when I'm there, that's where I'm gonna come hang out, and maybe we can play like cash flow board game or something. We could have some
Okay.
Tacoma Fi over there. But yeah, this was always fun, man. So glad we got to do this after maybe 2 years of connecting and me bullying you to come to Vegas. But and then I'll see you at year three, man.
So definitely see you year three for sure.
All right, man. Thanks, man.
Yep.